And you're a natural, sir. No reason to prep for this. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Army from the Army, Alex Gallegos joining us now, candidate for Congress. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin.
You know, you have such optimism, and I'm thinking, why is this veteran, this jump master, who has served his country, an Idaho native, a Canyon County native, all of a sudden coming back home, away from his family, running for Congress? That's a heck of a way to welcome you back to the Treasure Valley, sir. Tell us a little bit about your run. Why are you doing it?
Yeah, so the easy answer is I love America, and I know that Congress is failing America, and Idahoans are hurting because of that. And being an Idahoan and a Nampan, a native of Canyon County, I wanted to come back. I've always had a passion to serve, and no finer place to serve than to serve the people that you grew up with. Right.
You were telling me about growing up in Nampa, a Nampa High Bulldog.
Yeah.
You were talking about the Pix Theater when it actually was working. Anything else that you remember from your youth that is no longer there?
Oh, wow. I don't know if the Rollerdrome is still there or not, but we spent quite a few evenings at the Rollerdrome. They would lock us in, and that was a good thing. You know, youth these days have challenging times, right? I mean, they don't go out and ride bikes anymore. I heard a kid say he didn't even want a bike, which I found quite amusing. He would rather have a cell phone. But in our days, a bike and some pair of rollerblades or roller skates, that did us well. And actually, I thought it teaches you a lot when you have some social skills and some adult mentorship and leadership to kind of observe and make sure that you're safe and doing honorable things.
Right, especially during the couple skate.
Yes. We won't talk about couple skates.
Right, the couple skates where you have the sweaty palms and all that, and whether or not anybody will skate with you.
Yes.
But, that is a time in America where, you had some tough things going on, but you did have, some values and stuff, and people did play outside instead of playing online.
That's right, and that was a very important thing. One of the things that I learned early on is that you learn valuable lessons by watching people and observing them. And people took interest in each other, and I think that's kind of what we lost these days. People are about themselves, and of course the new generations of millennials and people just have different outlook on things, and we probably need to get back to being good neighbors to each other and respecting each other.
Well, that's easier said than done. So how did you come back to Idaho? We were talking about some of the places that you've served. You're a jump master. You're going to have to tell folks about that. And you spent a lot of time at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. I know your heart is here. You're a native. But those are some great places to live. You've been all over the world, all over the country, and yet you've chosen to come home. And then we'll get back to your run for Congress. But of all the places to settle down to retire, why Nampa, Idaho?
I think life should be about giving back. And I've been very blessed in my life to receive the benefactor of a lot of things. And I had some great mentors in this community. I wrestled for Coach Raleigh Lane. They have the Raleigh Lane tournament, and man, he taught me more about discipline than a lot of adult males in my life. And I had some other people in this community who really trusted and believed in me and gave me the confidence to do what I did. And I came back here to serve as a lieutenant. And one of my goals was to get out here and remain in the area. 9/11 happened, and that kind of changed things, altered the course of my life from that day forward. But I've always wanted to come back. While I was here as a lieutenant, I gave back to the community in that respect. I volunteered to be a mentor and a mediator for the juvenile court. And even as a little kid, I remember an incident in a park, and there was a man on the hill. We were kind of down in this little valley kind of terrain, and this guy shot into us, and we were probably 7, 8 years old. And one of my friends actually was struck by the bullet.
Wait a minute, you're talking about with a gun.
With a gun, with a weapon.
You're speaking about it so casually, like I would have a cheeseburger. You're saying I was shot at.
Well, I think this is, I think about this often because I get the question a lot, what makes you want to come back and why do you want to serve the people? And I remember this incident, this kid was shot and we were on the merry-go-round, and I remember him falling over, and I thought, well, man, he must have hit his stick because we're going on this merry-go-round pretty quick, and I see a lot of blood, and we stopped the merry-go-round, and I picked the kid up, and he was shot, and we took him about a half a block to his house, and I remember the gratification, the sense of gratification that I had carrying him home. Looking back, it may not have been the right thing to do. He was paralyzed for life after that, but I knew then that, my life is about serving others. And I felt it at that age, and it's something I've always wanted to do.
What age was that again?
Probably 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Alex Gallegos joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio, running for Congress. So let's go back to this. A lifetime of service.
Yes.
How long were you back in Nampa before you decided to run for Congress? Because I did a little research on you, and you were like last day, last minute, last hour.
Yeah.
You weren't a part of the usual suspects.
No, I appreciate that question, actually, because people do think that, and I have to,
No fake news here?
There's no fake news.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's a good question to ask because that's not really how it happened. It wasn't a hasty decision, actually. Lifetime of service is absolutely it. I've known for a long time I was going to come back to the area, and I've had my finger on the pulse of what's kind of going on back here for forever. I read all of this stuff every day, even from afar. And I figured that Representative Labrador was going to do something soon because he started talking about term limits, and I saw the changes going on and the demographics kind of changing and the field kind of changing. So in May and June when he decided to run for governor, that kind of changed my life. I had just completed battalion command. My wife also completed a very competitive position. We were back at the Pentagon, and I was wondering, is this the right time? And God does things for mysterious ways, and I'm a big believer that all things happen for a reason. And I had always knew I was going to come back. I didn't figure it was going to be now, but when he decided to do that, my wife and I had a real conversation, and she said, this is it. It's an open position, and someone new is going to have to win. And if someone new has to win, why can't it be somebody who really has their heart into this and really wants to do it for the right reason and really has no other reason to do it but then to serve? And that was May or June. And I have served for 26 years. So you don't transition from the Army overnight.
Sure.
I actually had to petition the Secretary of the Army to try to get permission to announce my candidacy early. Well, that doesn't happen either overnight. And we were in a transition between secretaries of the Army. So, and general counsels get involved. And there's a lot of things bureaucracy-wise that goes on when you ask the Secretary of the Army for anything.
Sir, long story short, because I find it fascinating, but a lot of people are going, hey, I need this guy to wake me up.
Yeah.
So you again, because we live in an ADD society,
For sure.
so you went through all this stuff.
Yeah.
Tough decisions for you. So what was the verdict?
The verdict was go out and do this. And my wife said, you better get out there. I came out here in January. I retired in December, and I came out here in January. And I did everything I filed in January. So it hasn't been as recent as March, but it was January. So ever since January, it's been game on 24/7. I've been doing this.
So tell us a little bit about your family.
So I'm married. I have 3 children. I have 2 beautiful boys and a beautiful daughter who's 3 years old. My wife was previously married. Her previous husband, Dan Eggers, who's a real American hero, was killed in Afghanistan in 2004. And that's our story. And I know every day I wake up, I look at these 2 gentlemen, and they become fine men. And I know what sacrifice is. Our family understands it. We wake up each day looking at 2 guys whose father they'll never know. And
that must be humbling for you.
It is humbling, and there's another story behind that, and I want to keep the listeners awake, but
sure.
Dan and I had a conversation one night.
This is good stuff.
Yeah, okay.
It's real. The Adjutant General's Corps and everything
yeah,
else.
Yeah, that's all boring.
But this is this shows, and again, the beauty of this format here is that you get time to introduce yourself, and you're a real person.
Yes.
Now, people may have seen you on the public television debate, and they may see you out. You were out, till 11 o'clock last night?
Yeah, about 12. Yeah, about 12.
Right, pounding your own signs.
Yes.
You don't have people. You're your person.
I have some family members who are helping.
I bet they love that, too, yes.
They love it. This is all new to them.
Right. All new to you.
So
now, wait a minute. You're a lieutenant colonel. You had like a staff, right?
Oh, yeah, I had a staff.
So this is
I had a staff, battalion commander. I had 700 folks who I was responsible for their lives every single day, and as a jump master, responsible for the real, life of everyone. So I think this is one of the important distinctions too between me and a lot of people. When we make mistakes, lives are at stake. Mm-hmm. And as a leader in the military, you take care of people every single day, and you have to be a selfless servant. So I think that's fundamentally. I woke up each day knowing that my life could be in jeopardy because I care about our freedom and I believe that our mission is an important one.
So, Alex, by the way, Alex Gallegos joining us, Kevin Miller in the Morning, running for Congress, first CD. Your website?
Website's alexforidaho.com.
Okay, alexforidaho.com. I interrupted you in this conversation you were having with Dan.
With Dan, yeah. So Dan, and ironically, I've known my wife before she was married, and we were all friends, and we're skiing in Bowie Creek up in North Carolina. As you said, it's a very beautiful place. And I don't share the story often, but I'll share it right now because I like you. And
I appreciate that, sir.
We're in a hot tub of all places, and Dan, a great American hero, had deployed multiple times. He was a member of the 3rd Special Forces Group, and he says
those are pretty high-speed people. For people that aren't familiar with that those are the elite of the elite.
And that's the community I served in. I've been airborne, and I've served in the Army Special Operations community for a substantial period, and I've been around some heroes. Rob Miller, to be one. He was killed, and I was in the same unit at the time, and he earned the distinguished of the Congressional Medal of Honor. So I was actually privileged to help in that effort and that endeavor. And I could tell you that there's no greater honor than to be involved in something like that. So back to Dan. We're sitting in a hot tub, and Dan looks at me and he says, "Alex, I need you to promise me that you'll take care of the boys if something were to ever happen to me." And of course, as a man, you want to say, "Just be quiet." That's not ever going to happen. And lo and behold, that summer, I got the phone call, and Dan was killed. And ever since then, my relationship with the boys changed, and Rebecca and I's relationship changed later on. So through the boys really is how our relationship developed. And, it's one of those things.
And she's still serving.
She's still serving. She's going to be a colonel.
Outrank
she's going to outrank me here pretty quickly. I was good with that. She's very a testament to her. She's a Gold Star mother and spouse, and she's just continuing to serve because that's what she loves to do. So
it'll really be like that USAA commercial where she outranks you, where you have the wife outranking the husband. In it, yeah.
She's always outranked me, actually. Right. Now we have this thing in the military, and as you know, you can appreciate sync home, Commander in Chief home.
Right.
Yeah, she's sync home all the time, so it doesn't. I always know. I call her ma'am all the time, so it's okay.
Now, when will your whole family be here? I mean, when will everybody come back home? Because you've chosen to live in your hometown of Nampa, Idaho.
Yeah, so this is a good question. So she still has 3 years, so she pins on colonel. As we say, she gets promoted to retain that rank. At retirement, she'll have to serve 3 years. So they will stay in Virginia, and we'll just make this work because that's what we do. We're accustomed to it. And the funny thing is, when representatives leave their state, they leave their families behind a majority of the time. So we're kind of doing it backwards.
Right.
Which is okay because we do everything a little bit backwards anyways.
You're such an example of what we see each and every day with military folks and others that sacrifice, but specifically military families where you're going to be separated from your family unit for 3 years. And whether it's a hardship deployment, whether it's something else, you folks do this all the time. What is the special bond that, that allows military families to survive incredible pressures that 99% of the civilian world don't face as families and as people?
No, you touched on it right there. Is 1% of our nation serves and understands what it means to serve. And I don't know that it's a special bond. I think it's probably innate. I think people grow up and don't just decide it's an all-volunteer force, right? But I think people get into the service and they realize what an important mission and objective is, and that in itself, when you're doing something greater than yourself, performing a function in life that's important and will impact generations and legacies beyond your own. Freedom is it's cliche. We say the price of freedom isn't free. But when you deploy and you serve and you don the uniform and you carry a weapon and you know that you could be put in positions that you might have to say goodbye to your family and never see them again, you just have a different appreciation for things in life, and I think that is a special bond. You can't. There's no substitute for that. There is no substitute for that. So, 1% of Americans serve, and that's a challenge that we're going to have to face too. And another reason why I think it's important to have more veteran representation in Congress, because with less than 19% of Congress being represented by veterans, there are some real issues in national security and the all-volunteer force and our veterans and our care for our veterans that people who have served understand in a very intimate way.
Alex Gallegos joining us. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'll have his platform for Congress next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And don't forget, coming up tomorrow, Eagle High School, Promote Our Schools, Secure Our Future, brought to you by CapEd Credit Union, T Mazda Subaru, and Grade Power Learning in Meridian. Alex Gallegos joining us now. Your last name is very intimidating for someone, and the folks at Grade Power Learning are helping me with my phonics phobia, so want to do you justice, sir. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, jump master. So for those of us that are legs,
Yes.
those of us that have never understood why anybody would jump out of a perfectly good airplane, you trained people to do this, to get over their fears. Did you ever have a fear of heights?
I still have fear of heights, actually, yes.
Okay, and you jumped out of airplanes, you supervised people, you trained people to do this.
Yes.
And that's preparing you for Congress. How do we merge those two worlds?
Well, I think you answered the question right up front, is you train people for it and you have a fear of it. You face your fears and you challenges. One of the biggest challenges I have is name recognition, right? I knew that coming out here. I wasn't, I'm not naive to the fact that people aren't going to know who I am. But if you face the challenge and you overcome that, that's how you do it, by overcoming that adversity. I want to get back to one thing you said, Gallegos, and I'm a phonics guy too. And honestly, until high school, I never pronounced my name correctly because, quite frankly, I was ashamed a little bit about being Gallegos.
Why?
And, hey, growing up here in a community that was largely Caucasian, and...
Hey, now, what's wrong with us people without pigment? I've had pigment envy my entire life.
Oh, pigment envy. That's awesome. I envy lots of things. Never pigment, but that's
Well, you have it. You know what it's like to look like a red lobster?
Oh, well, the funny makeup artist the other night said, you have great skin, and I don't have to put any makeup on you because you have a good tan. I wanted to tell her that's from pounding the fence post for the last week and a half. So, anyway, Miss Vendray, another one of these people who had confidence in me right before our high school graduation, says, you need to make people say your name correctly because your last name is pronounced Gallegos.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, and I got it. At that moment in my life, I realized I'm Gallegos. I'm not Gallegos. And it's okay to be a Gallegos. I like Gallegos.
I think you're great. Let's go to traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio. And back to Alex Gallegos joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. So, your military service, you're a native, obviously you love this area, you're a family man, your platform. If elected, what change can you bring in really following one of the most conservative members of Congress's footsteps?
No, for sure. And I think you go back to being a jump master and being a service member, and what you get with both of those is discipline. When you're a jump master, there's a couple hundred things you need to check on a person before they exit an aircraft, or else their lives are in jeopardy, and that's a very real thing. And it's discipline that gets you through the school to become a jump master, to do those kinds of things. And that's what I hope to restore in Congress, because, quite frankly, they lack a lot of discipline. They kick the can down the road, and that's cliche, and I don't like to use it, but it's true. There are a lot of complex issues and challenges that we face in the nation that we have permitted Congress not to get after, and that's a problem. I mean, if you look at fundamentally what they're responsible for doing, securing the safety and security and safety of the people in the nation, that's one, right? Well, look what they've done to our military over the last 7-8 years. And then people ask me about the omnibus bill. Would I have voted yes? And of course I would have. You know why? And I think the president was put in a difficult position. It was because we had to take care of our military. Bottom line, I didn't like $1.3 trillion. I'm a fiscally conservative kind of guy, but I know personally what happened throughout those years. And I tell people all the time. In 2013, I was at the Pentagon. We lost some service members, and I was working for the Assistant Secretary of the Army. And I found it completely disheartening that we weren't able to pay those families the death gratuity for the loss of their loved ones. When we send our sons and daughters to war, and they perish for our freedom, that's a promise that should never be broken. And when politics and partisan politics get involved, and they start impacting people's lives like that, I have a real problem with that. So I hope to bring discipline back to Congress. That's what I would do. by holding people accountable for doing what's tough and right by everyone.
What's the state of the Special Operations Group? Obviously, under President Obama, you all got a lot of work, perhaps too much work, maybe perhaps not enough time to take advantage of all the field activity, all the time in country, in theater, in combat. We've depended a lot historically to the highest levels of our special operators. For sure,
I love the special operations community. I've served in it quite a long time. I will just say for every services, all the services, every branch, we have phenomenal people and leaders, and I don't want to just focus on the special operations guys because they're important. Don't get me wrong.
But that's where you have the experience. That's why.
No, for sure. But at the Pentagon, my real experience was with the 3.8 million people that we were responsible daily. In my capacity that I served in, we had the responsibility for caring for not only, active duty members and overseeing National Guard Reserve issues as well, but looking out for the families and the veterans. So we called it cradle to grave, right? So from the birth of a child of a family member in the hospital all the way to burial at Arlington. So if you can remember the incident that occurred in Arlington, what a travesty that was, our office actually overlooked that kind of thing. So 3.8 million people, you learn that everyone's important, and National Guard and Reserves are equally as important as everyone else. And we all have an important role to play. I will just tell you the state of affairs in the military, there's been big price to pay with how we've treated our military in the last decade. And we've been outstretched, and the tempo has been an issue, obviously. I think strategically, however, I will tell you that strategically we need to look at some things and the way we're operating. We have to look at Afghanistan. I mean, I've served in Afghanistan twice, and I'm still to date trying to figure out what our real strategy is there. So, this is one of the things. As a service member, I can have those conversations with representatives and members of Congress, and, oh, by the way, people that serve on the Armed Services Committee, and understand what they're talking about, because I've been there, and I can tell you, and I can look at you in the face and go, what are we doing in Afghanistan? Why are we still continuing to lose people? And I think you would hit on a key point. There's different ways to attack a problem. And maybe we don't need to send a lot of folks. Maybe we need to do it in a clandestine, quieter way, and we're pretty effective at doing that.
Alex Gallegos, one more time, your website, sir?
AlexForIdaho.com.
AlexForIdaho.com. We'd love to have you back.
Absolutely, anytime, and I really do appreciate it. Name recognition is my biggest challenge, but I'm a hometown guy coming back for the right reasons, God and country, freedom and liberty, and no one, I think, can ever question selfless service is part of who I am, and it's what I want to give back.
As your people would say, hoorah, is that correct?
Hoorah. Or airborne, actually, airborne.
Airborne all the way.
All the way.
Yes. I'll be a supporter on the sidelines. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Appreciate it anytime.
You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Do want to thank Alex Gallegos for joining us, AlexForIdaho.com. I guess we should start calling this Contender Wednesday. We've got a lot of folks on today running for office. We do have time for our quality chat time at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next, we do want to talk about the importance of mentors. Before that, many people discuss the Second Amendment, and we're so proud of our friend Greg Pruitt, the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance, the real 3% of Idaho, Rusty Smurs and the militia, the Ada County militia. If I've left somebody out, I apologize. And because of that, because of the Second Amendment, and because of our friends at Independence Indoor Shooting, we invite you to stop by and shoot. That's right. Stop by and shoot on Friday morning. We're going to have representatives from Independence Indoor Shooting. They're going to be there. And we're going to shoot during the morning show. And to my friend Wes at American Reserve Munitions, I will be responding to you today. Sorry about that. Yesterday got away from me, but they are an Idaho-based company that produces ammunition. We're going to try and have them there. But if you would like to join us at Independence Indoor Shooting on Friday, come by, fire some weapons, come on the show. Candidates, that's right, candidates. For all the candidates that email me and say, hey, what about this race? Well, come by, fire a few weapons. We'll put you on the air. I think it's important. And I'm going to confess, I watched the Democratic debate last night on Channel 7. God bless the folks on Channel 7 for putting that together. Hearing Paulette Jordan, who I think is trying to be the young Bernie Sanders. She's a very articulate, very smart woman. Has a lot of charisma. The camera likes her. But she's a millennial. And, just like the boomers have their idiosyncrasies, the Xers have theirs. By the way, you have to admit, out of all the cohorts, the Xers are the coolest, I think, just because that name, X. Anyway, I don't think she could help herself by, and this is what happens when people are overly smart or overly confident. Here you have A.J. Belukoff, a young man who has humbled himself again to run for office. And, the little snide remarks by Paulette Jordan. And again, maybe I should start Facebook living everything. Mrs. Miller was laughing at me as I was talking back to the TV last night. AJ would have an answer, and she'd go, well, I'll put it more succinctly than my opponent. And you're thinking, well, that's not a big issue. And Mark Johnson last night bringing up the fact that, well, AJ came within 15 points of beating Governor Otter. Actually, Governor Otter came perilously close to losing the election to Russ Fulcher. And I can see where AJ would be confident. And look, we'd love to have AJ on. We've reached out to AJ's people several times. They don't have their act together, and that's fine. AJ is a wonderful man. We admire him. We'd love to have him on. I don't know the deal with his people. Paulette Jordan, they send press releases out, and I can see why she wouldn't want to come on this show. But she's invited as well. And here's the thing that, people have said to me, Kevin, why don't you guys do something? Why don't you jump into the debate fray? Because, again, I don't think that people really get it. When the Miller militia gets together, we roll. And I don't know if we can handle one of those things or if they can handle us. I was watching this debate. Now, Mark Johnson, I believe, or maybe it was Joe Paris. I can't remember because Joe does mornings and afternoons now, the incredibly gifted, talented reporter at Channel 7. So Joe Paris says, hey, you were at the rally with the kids, and you talked about the AR-15. And you talked about that thing going away. Do you support, does the AR-15 have a place in Idaho? And she answered no. And then she did the liberal doublespeak where she said, well, I don't agree with taking people's weapons away if they're good people, so I guess the state would decide. And I said to myself and my little dachshund, Carolina, along with Buster, another dachshund, and my Australian shepherd that was sleeping, Alabama, and I said, look, that is an example of liberal doublespeak. On one hand, she's appealing to her base, the Bernie Sanders base of Idaho, where she's saying, yes, the AR-15 has no place here. That's right, Paulette Jordan. We did watch the debate last night. And then, and by the way, lives on the North End, telling everybody where she lives. And I'm going, now, wait a minute. Are you from North Idaho or do you live in the North End? You can't have it both ways, but that's what the libs do. They want to have it both ways. So do you believe a Democratic candidate when they say the AR-15 has no place in Idaho, and yet they're not going to take your weapons? I don't believe that. And this is one of the reasons why I find myself watching MSNBC all the time or CNN. It just gets me fired up. So I'm watching this. Do you believe someone when they say they're not going to take your guns, Republican or Democrat? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. An AR-15. So, again, and by the way, it was funny because they did wicked good close-ups on her. AJ, not so much. Now, for me, I thought AJ won the debate last night. And I think AJ is going to be a formidable opponent, and that's one of the reasons why we're having our Unity Breakfast at Terry's Cafe in Meridian on the 17th. Because the Republican Party, whether it's Brad Little, who will join us this morning, whether it's Congressman Labrador, Lieutenant Governor Little, Congressman Labrador will join us on Friday, Dr. Alquist, who was on yesterday, you're going to have, if it's A.J. Belukoff, you're going to have a candidate who is known, who has run statewide before, and who has the resources to make himself very, very competitive. And he's not a Bernie Sanders lib. But back to this point, so I'm watching Paulette Jordan last night, and I'm going, I don't know what she's saying. And I understand the challenges of when you have a debate, unless you're Idaho Public Television, when you can ask 75 questions of a follow-up on something that doesn't relate to us, like pre-K versus K kindergarten, and if the state's going to fund it. The state can't fund 1 through 12. How are you going to fund everything else? But I wish somehow someone said, well, which is it? Are you in favor of banning the AR-15 in Idaho? Perhaps, as you said or alluded to at the kids don't like the guns rally? Or are you going to support the Second Amendment? And watching the two candidates, the Democratic candidates last night, again, it was myself, it was Mrs. Miller, Tea Party Bob, and the Little Millies. I think watching this. Not that it wasn't a good production. It's just that, what are you going to do? There wasn't many fireworks. And like I said, the idea of taking that weapon, your thoughts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, on whether or not you believe candidate Paulette Jordan. And by the way, it's funny because, I'm surrounded by libs in this building, and my girl Paulette Jordan. Well, good for you. She's not going to win. We applaud her for running for office. Again, hugely charismatic, but not yet ready to take on the Republicans, despite what Cher says. That's number one. Number two, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Number three, the importance of mentors. Coming up next with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. All right, one more time with the Democratic debate last night. I was sitting there watching this, and somebody was talking about affordable housing, and then Paulette Jordan says that she lives in Boise, but she doesn't live in Boise because she lives in North Idaho. And then that it's a local issue, but it's not a local issue, and that if it happens, then rents need to go down, and people in her age. Like I said, it was just odd. Let's see if we have a little clip from this last night.
Want to raise the minimum wage?
Yes, absolutely.
How would you do that? I know we have a lot of minimum wage workers in Idaho, but it's the average wage that people are struggling with. So how would minimum wage increases really impact the livable wage?
Yes, and I appreciate that because I co-sponsored legislation a few years ago to index the minimum wage based off of the Consumer Price Index. And we started at $9 an hour, hoping to increase and pushing this in our legislative body. And I think really the challenge is working with the business community and providing that their voices are the forefront at this table. Right.
The business community does not want to raise the minimum wage. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. In life we have these issues, and we have people that come into our lives. And as old people have said to us, as we become old people, the idea of appreciating life. And how can we make a big difference in our lives? Yesterday I had the chance to be interviewed by Pat from Middleton on his radio show, and that'll be airing soon. And we were talking about life and people making a difference. And so when we look at that, for me, it's always mentors. And recently, I lost a good friend of mine. And maybe you can relate to this, where you've gone from the youngest person in the room to the middle person to now you're one of the older people. And this gentleman's name was Marty Broman. Marty was a meteorologist, but more importantly, Marty was a family man, a husband, a father. He loved his barbecue, loved the Kansas City Royals, a baseball guy, truly a baseball guy. But Marty understood the importance of giving back, and over the years, as he would, mature into this grizzled veteran of covering tornadoes and severe weather activity and teaching people how to write and to cover news events, Marty had the biggest heart of anyone that I've ever known. And there's a kind of a rivalry in the broadcast business. The news people, they are not too down with the opinionated folks because, as Sean Hannity would say, he's not really a news person. I play in the realm of news occasionally, but what we do is we commentate, and the news people are very protective. Well, Marty Broman saw something in me over 20 years ago, and as you have done this with people in your life, that you've seen something, you've taken them under your wing, you've decided, hey, there's potential. And as I said, I learned that we had lost Marty the other day, and the idea of people giving back. And we talk about that, and we have Idaho Gives coming up, but I can never repay what this gentleman did. The only thing that I can do is something that my My dad told me once when I said, how can I ever pay you back for what you've done for me? And he said, well, when you see someone in life that needs a helping hand or needs some guidance, that's how you pay me back. And that's what we need today. And I know that you do that. I know, gosh knows, the people in churches do that. I love the people that work for the nonprofits, either as a full-time job or volunteer, or work for their churches as a youth minister or as someone who is involved in volunteering. Though you make the difference. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing that, because today the world needs good mentors. And as I said, just a comment, a compliment can make a difference. I hadn't talked to Marty in years. In fact, he was in Idaho a couple years ago and we missed each other. I think he was fishing or something on the Salmon River. And something he said to me that really resonated, he goes, look, I saw something in you a long time ago. What you did covering this trial was the best thing that I've ever seen. And for someone who really valued his opinion, it made my day. It encouraged me. So regardless of where we are or where we presume we are in lives, we make a difference. And even though I haven't seen Marty for years, I keep him in my prayers now. I pray that he's in heaven broadcasting tornado warnings wherever. We make a difference. And it's sad that we give so much attention to the Kanye Wests or to the Robert Muellers or to anyone else. It's you. It's the person that goes that extra effort, that hauls the kids to soccer practices, that travels, does that trip to the gymnastics debate. Just a thought on mentors, and to encourage you to continue your great work. And for my friend Marty, God rest his soul. Traffic and weather.